everyone, welcome to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes a show business. I'm your host, Jamie Meloni, and new episodes air weekday mornings, 7 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we hope to inspire you to step outside of the box, start a business, get involved in an organization, or do something you wouldn't otherwise do. And so that's the mission and the vision of That Business Show, now on air for over 2 years, over 1,500 different entrepreneurial and professional interviews conducted, and very excited to do another one today with our 2017 Miss Tampa, Miss Olivia Butler. So Olivia, welcome to the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So first off, tell us a little bit about the background of the pageant.
Sure.
I think I talked with you prior and you said this was your first time in a pageant, and so you didn't grow up in the pageant business, correct?
So I did not grow up doing pageants. I actually started competing within the Miss America organization 2 years ago. But pageants were not something that were totally foreign to me as a child. I had a grandmother who actually competed in a pageant in Cuba. Her title was a agricultural fair title in 1945, and my mother competed at Miss Florida in 1980. So it was something that I was always familiar with, but I never necessarily pursued because I was always busy with school. The reason why I personally got involved is 2 years ago, after I graduated college, I had a degree in television broadcasting, so I thought for sure I was going to be a news anchor or go into media of some capacity, and I ended up changing my mind. So I had to go back to school to take my prerequisites to go to medical school. And I didn't want mom and dad to have to foot that bill too. So I found the Miss America organization to pay for school, really, because at its crux, it's about inspiring young women to pursue academic pursuits, and all of the prize money that a woman wins as a title holder goes towards school.
Oh, so that's a great resource then for young ladies. What age group is allowed to participate in the Miss America pageants?
So there is a teen program. Usually that begins at 13 and goes to age 16. And then the Miss category competes within age 17 to 24.
Okay, and now there's a difference, and I didn't know this until last year when I was talking to last year's recipient, Morgan Boykin. I had her on the program last year. But there's a difference between Miss America and Miss USA. Can you elaborate on that? Because I wasn't even aware of the difference.
Yeah, and I actually did a Facebook Live video a little while ago, because that's a very common question that I get at appearances. You know, are you going to Miss USA or are you going to Miss Universe? And those are really the two main pageant systems within the country, or the Miss America system and the Miss USA. And what distinguishes the two systems is first the competition. So the young ladies in Miss USA do not compete in talent. The Miss America contestants do. I would say the second big distinguisher between the two is the objective. So the young women that compete in Miss America, like I stated earlier, are trying to get money for school. Whereas the Miss USA contestants, they're models. So they're seeking modeling contracts. So that's why the selection process is a little bit different, just because the objective is different, and the job of that national title holder at the end of the day is also very different based on what they're pursuing and what they're trying to get out of their respective pageant systems.
Now you're going on to compete for Miss Florida. You've earned Miss Tampa so far. Miss Florida being held at the Lakeland Center June 27th, correct? It's a couple of day competition. Now, have you already earned educational credits as Miss Tampa, and does Miss Florida just give you more and more benefits, or how does that whole process work?
I did. So last year I actually had the opportunity to serve as Miss Pasco County. I won a good amount of money competing there, but in total I've won about $9,000 in scholarship money.
Wow.
So I have had a zero school balance for a little while. So my
Mom and Dad are proud
oh,
of you.
My father is very happy. I think for the sake of his health, he's been very excited that I have competed within Miss America to not have to pay for anything.
And you mentioned medical school, right?
Yes.
So you have great aspirations here, so you're going to have a big bill to foot, and so hopefully the pageant business helps take care of that. How else do you plan to fund your pathway through college and through medical school, though? Is there other businesses that you're involved in?
Yeah, so I have a large involvement in charities. That was one of the things that I would say is very important to the Miss America system, is the platform component of the competition. So each local contestant and national contestant is responsible for developing their own platform. And one of the things that I do for the charity that I represent is raise money, mainly to, sponsor those young women, because I think this program is not only about getting money for myself for school, but encouraging other young women to pursue education. And one of the endeavors that I'm very excited about is a company called Transitioned Candles, and it's a social enterprise for young women that are maybe having a hard time in school, or they have been labeled by the state as at risk. So that means that they're either failing or on the verge of failing and dropping out of high school. And the way the business is structured is it's a partnership with a candle making company called 7th Avenue Apothecary in Ybor City. And all of these young women go through an apprenticeship where they learn how to make and market candles, develop their own scents, and all of the money that they incur by selling those products go to a scholarship fund so that they can go to school. It's something I'm very excited about, very proud that I'm able to even be a part of that project. And we actually just launched our online website a couple of days ago.
What is the website?
It's www.transitioncandles.com.
And so that is your charity that you're involved with. You mentioned the charity that you're connected to.
Yes.
So that is the charity. So what is it again?
It's called Transition Candles.
TransitionCandles.com.
Yes.
So I want to check that out.
Yeah.
And so are you a candle maker yourself, or just supporting it through the organization?
I am not. I know where my expertise begins and where it ends, and I am not a candle maker by any stretch of the imagination, but I got to witness that process from start to finish. It's a very unique business, and I'm just very proud that at the end of the day, those young women are going to get an opportunity to study.
Definitely a skill worth obtaining. I mean, you got a whole store centered around candles. So everybody loves candles, and it's an excellent trait to be able to have if you know how to make candles. And so your organization, or your mission to help support them. So congratulations and thank you for giving back to the community. It's very important. Number one reason why I do this program is to give back to the community. Now, you had mentioned part of the Miss America pageant is a talent competition.
Yes.
Tell us about your talent.
Yes. So I compete as a classical vocalist within pageants. I actually had the honor of being the talent preliminary award winner last year. But ironically, I didn't start off by singing opera. I had a grandfather that loved bluegrass country music, Alison Krauss, Doc Watson. That's what I grew up listening to. And I developed a taste for opera as I grew older, just because I've always had a love of history. And what I love about opera is it has a lot of psychological components to it, because a lot of these composers were brilliant, and they were dealing with a lot of emotional issues, which was projected onto the opera and the way that they developed the opera. And there's also a lot of history within opera when it comes to music notation. The context by which the opera occurs can be very interesting historically, but it was just an interest that I developed as an adult. And actually, when I was at Wake Forest, I had the opportunity of performing with the Wake Forest Symphony Orchestra. I won the highest distinction at my university for music, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, because I got to stand in front of an orchestra. It was 350 people with no microphone, and I gave an hour-and-a-half concert. And I remember in the middle of it, I had to take a break because I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to pass out, because the amount of air that it takes to project over that large of an orchestra is incredible.
Wow.
But that's one of the highlights of my life.
Aren't orchestras typically performed in Italian? Are you singing in English, Italian? What language are you singing in?
So I have sung in German, Italian, Spanish, and French. The ideal language is obviously the Romance languages, Italian and Spanish, just because the consonants are really long, so it's a lot easier to create resonance or vibrato in the voice. But I have done the others. My favorite was probably the piece that I performed last year at Miss Florida. It was a Mozart piece. It's called Porgi Amor, and it was just beautiful. I loved it. I love the story of the opera, and it's just a passion of mine. Being a musician is really a part of who I am as a woman and as my identity as.
How do you sell the opera to people such as myself who I don't know what's going on in an opera? How do you get people like myself inspired to go see an opera?
So I think a lot of it has to do with how the artist communicates the beauty of the music. The challenge in opera, certainly within pageants, is people don't necessarily understand the language that the song is sung in. So it's my responsibility then to be very dramatic in the way that I communicate the piece, so that perhaps you can deduce what I'm trying to communicate without me stating it in your native language. So it is a challenge, but I enjoy it, and I think if it's done beautifully and it's done professionally, it can be a really, amazing experience for the person that's the listener.
Now, in the pageants, how long do you perform the opera piece? Do you give it 2 minutes, 3 minutes? How long do you get to sing?
So regardless of talent, whether it's baton, tap, we actually have an aerialist this year, which I'm very excited to see. You get 1 minute and 30 seconds. So that's not that long of a time to let a judge know, hey, I'm
Right.
talented at this.
I was gonna say, isn't there like a warm-up process to kind of get into that, feeling, to be able to sing at that level, though, right? So there's
Yeah.
got to be a few minutes to even get your voice at that level, right?
Yes, you will find a lot of girls singing in the bathroom,
Right.
just to warm up, and we entertain each other, and it was amazing to see. I remember sitting backstage and fixing hair and makeup and just hearing some of the incredible voices. I mean, that's what I love about these young women. Is I think I'm a firm believer that iron sharpens iron.
Right.
And when you stand backstage and you get to compete with these exceptionally well-rounded women, it is amazing. I mean, we've had Harvard students, we've had scientists, we have women that truly epitomize what it means to be a modern day woman, and I really am proud to stand next to them.
Now you're going on to compete in the Miss Florida pageant being held at the Lakeland Center June 27th through July 1st. People can learn more and pick up tickets at thelakelandcenter.com. How can people help support you at the Miss Florida pageant?
So I think just coming and watching the girls. I think whether it's me or another young woman, I can tell you as a competitor, when you hear people screaming in the audience for you, especially at that swimsuit portion, it's very exciting, and you feed off of that energy as a competitor, and I think that translates into how you perform overall. So I think coming and watching the pageant is a really wonderful way to encourage your local title holder to do well at the state competition. I think beyond that, maybe going on Facebook and searching for, if you're from Miami, if you're from Orlando, your local title holder, and just sending them a message of encouragement. Because what people don't understand, I think, is when you compete at a pageant, you're trying to show the judges snippets of your life. The talent portion for me, I've put in 10 plus years into developing myself as a vocalist. So I think when you have somebody saying, hey, I'm supporting you, I'm very excited for you, that means a lot. And it helps when it comes to the pressure of competing at something like a Miss Florida.
Well, great, accomplishment here. 2017 Miss Tampa, Olivia Butler, in studio with us today. People can learn more about the organization too at MissTampa.org. And again, help her win the title by supporting her at the Lakeland Center on June 27th through July 1st. If you're in the Tampa Bay region, tickets available at thelakelandcenter.com. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about some issues that Olivia is involved in. She is very much, in tune with the community and giving back. She's involved with, fighting against human trafficking, a big issue that goes a lot of times behind the scenes and a lot of people aren't even aware of. Is a big problem in the community and also in Tampa Bay. So we'll be talking about that with her and a lot more about the pageant when we come back from the break on That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Hi, Jackie Skelton from JR World Travel here. If you travel, you need a licensed professional travel consultant, not a computer. Your licensed professional consultant can get you more for your time and your money. Value for your money and experience, not marketing salesmanship. When you're sick, you call the doctor. When you need legal advice, you call an attorney. So the next time you want to go on any type of travel, call your licensed professional travel consultant who actually represents you. We specialise in group travel, family reunions, weddings, to escorting large groups or making special arrangements for the disabled. Please call 844-249-0190. We are a full-service travel consultancy offering worldwide concierge service. air, land, sea, rivers, resorts, locally, nationally and internationally. Remember that number, 844-249-0190.
Welcome back to That Business Show 2.0. I'm your host, Jamie Meloni. We're in studio today with the 2017 Miss Tampa winner, Miss Olivia Butler, who will be competing at the Miss Florida pageant on June 27th through July 1st. Be sure to help support that and pick up tickets at the lakelandcenter.com. Now, Olivia, you and I have talked before about your involvement with fighting against human trafficking. For many people, they think that's a a non-issue, especially those of us in the the business community. Talk to us a little bit about your involvement in this and the prevalence of this problem.
Sure. So it's an issue that is very near and dear to my heart, just because when I was in college, I unfortunately was involved in a very abusive relationship. And when I was getting through kind of the recovery of that process, I just couldn't help but question, what would make somebody abuse another person, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, verbally. I became very fascinated with understanding that. And I think what conclusion I arrived at is I think in this country we have a huge self-worth epidemic. And I think when you are insecure as a person, that is projected onto how you treat other people. I always found crimes of sexual violence to be very interesting and very unique, mainly because Tampa is third in the world for sex trafficking. We have a huge problem.
I would not know. I've been here 20 years and I don't notice anything out of the ordinary versus being in other cities. That's amazing to me.
It is. It's mainly because of our geographical location. So we are in the I-4 corridor. Orlando's not too far, Miami is not too far. So we're kind of in the hub of a market, and what I also became very interested in is what would make a man want to purchase a young woman, and I think all of it comes down to self-worth and insecurity. I was fortunate enough a couple of years ago to actually meet a young woman who escaped from that kind of situation, and it was very sad. And one of the things that she brought to light with me personally is, what does that interaction look like? And she says that you were more successful in that industry if you could make that man feel like he was loved, like it was an experience, and that there was an emotional intimacy to that transaction. And I think that just bolstered my point. When you are insecure, you don't feel loved and of worth, that affects the rest of your life.
So why don't the victims just simply call the police and say, I need help? I understand that they're fear for their lives of their loved ones, but is that power? I just don't understand how that power can come to such a point to where people just don't pick up the phone and tell somebody.
Absolutely, and I think that comes from, you're not the only person that has reacted in that way, and it just comes from an oversimplification of how dangerous it is to escape those situations. A lot of these young women are under the jurisdiction of a pimp, and these guys are very dangerous. And if you try to leave, you're putting your life in jeopardy. So it's either I continue what I'm doing and I figure out a very demure way to get out, or I escape and it costs me my life. And that is another kind of conversation that she and I had. It's very difficult to escape this kind of
For people that
situations.
suspect that somebody is a pimp or somebody that is a victim of human trafficking or sexual exploitation, where should they start? Obviously, if I'm talking to you and I think that you're a victim, I don't just say, hey, I can help you, where do they start? Or how do they begin to help those types of people?
So we're actually very fortunate in the Tampa area to have a lot of charities that specialize in this, and not only that, but have resources for that young woman. One of them that comes to mind is the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. They have a hotline. You can call at any point in time anonymously. They can track your geographic location, and somebody can come and find you and hopefully pull you away. Unfortunately, a lot of the time these pimps isolate these young girls when it comes to phones. All of that is regulated. They don't have regular access to internet and to phones, so it can be very difficult. But a lot of the time it occurs, that grooming process for recruiting young women occurs in very public places, and you can kind of pick up on things. So one of the things that I learned in talking to this young lady was that International Mall is actually a very common place for young women to be recruited, because what these young men do is they look at young girls that are in places like Forever 21, and they maybe want to buy something but can't afford it. So then that young man will come up to her and say, hey, you want that blouse? I'll buy it for you, and you're beautiful, you're this. And it just goes back to that monopoly on confidence. When they make them feel secure and give them access to things that they would not have had beforehand, that's a perfect setup for a young woman to get into an industry like that.
So are people or women that come from well-to-do families even at risk for this? Because when I think of human trafficking, I think of poor third world countries where they're going overseas and taking advantage of people who just need some type of support system. But are you saying that people that are coming from well-to-do families here in the Tampa Bay region, their young daughters are also at risk for this?
I would say they're at risk. I don't know that I would say specifically for a sex trafficking kind of situation, because I do think there's a lot of other components that can contribute to the probability of that happening. But I think whenever we're insecure, there are unfortunately bad people out there that look for that. And I think that's one of the very important roles of a parent, is to develop and help develop that young woman's sense of identity. Because when they are insecure, people look for that, and it can become a very dangerous situation, maybe with a friend, with a boyfriend, and it develops later on in life to something more dangerous. So that's why I think it's very important, and I tell parents, you know, in the day of technology with Facebook and Instagram, it's very easy for us to kind of check out. But you have to be in tune with your child and make sure, you know, that they feel a sense of self-worth, because that is a huge determinant later on if they're able to get through any kind of trauma or tragedy that they may experience.
Now, earlier you mentioned the woman that you had met who had been a victim of, you know, this trafficking, epidemic and problem. Talk to us about her life today and how she has rebounded from that.
So she actually is an employee of a charity in Tampa. She has been wonderful. She has decided to use that story to empower herself and to get other young women like her out of their situations. I think that's very honorable. You know, it's not always easy to come out publicly and say that you have experienced something as tragic as being a victim of sex trafficking, but the fact that she is willing to put that aside and put her ego aside to be transparent and hopefully salvage at least one young woman, I think is very admirable.
How can the general public help fight against human trafficking and sexual exploitation just in our daily lives, and how can we recognize problems? Because like I said, you say we're the third largest problem in the world. I mean,
yes.
I don't notice anything. What am I missing?
So I think just be in tune with your surroundings. A very common environment for people to be purchasing young girls, or there to be, fishy situations going on, or things like football games. The Super Bowl actually is one of the worst days of the year for sex trafficking transactions to occur. So just keep your eyes and your ears open, and if you see something suspicious, tell somebody.
Wow, incredible what's going on in our society, that you think everything's peachy key and everything. There's so many people out there that are being abused and subject to trafficking and sexual exploitation. So we're talking to Olivia Butler, the 2017 Miss Tampa recipient, and going on to compete in the Miss Florida pageant June 27th through July 1st. So I want to shift gears and go back to the pageant talk a little bit here as we wrap this up. You mentioned that you were Miss Pasco County last year. Now you're Miss Tampa.
Yes.
What edge do you have over your competitors? You've got back-to-back wins here just in the pageant business. What's setting you apart from your competition?
I think what sets me apart is I think my trajectory into pageants is very non-traditional. The other thing I'm very passionate about is I'm a first-generation American. My first language is Spanish, and we have actually never had a Hispanic Miss America. So that would be an incredible honor, of course. But I think every young woman that stands on that stage is unique. It's just a question of how effectively are you marketing that part of yourself. But going back to my ethnicity, I would love to involve the Hispanic community in the Miss America system. Tampa alone has over 80,000 Hispanics living, and it's in our area, and it's a very integral part of our identity as a city. So doing appearances in Spanish, I think, is very important. Keeping that community in tune with the fact that I'm their representative is very important to me, and would be very important to me as a Miss Florida and potentially as a Miss America.
Wow, incredible. But no Hispanic Miss Americas in history? Wow,
no.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Because I think now in the Miss USA pageant that's different, and because I know a good friend of mine, her aunt ran a pageant modeling school out of Puerto Rico, and they had many Miss USAs, many Miss Universes. Why the disconnect between Miss USA and Miss America?
I guess perhaps the right one just hasn't come along yet. I don't know. As I said, pageants, there's a very subjective component that goes along with pageants. I tell people it can come down to, do you like a red rose, a white rose, or a yellow rose? They're all equally beautiful, but they're different. And I think we just haven't had somebody perhaps that's ready for the job, because at the end of the day, that's what those judges are assessing, is can that young woman confront with confidence all of the challenges that are going to come with that job, because it can be hard sometimes. You know, I tell people I take makeup off 3 and 4 times a day. Sometimes I have things booked back to back to back, you know, taking organic chemistry at the same time you're trying to be Miss Tampa. It's difficult, and you have to be secure enough in yourself to be able to be responsible and be mature and manage that time efficiently. And not only that, but you know, sometimes people give a lot of constructive criticism, certainly in preparation for Miss Florida, and you have to be okay with that and say, you know what, they're trying to help me, they're not trying to attack my character. So compartmentalizing that. But at the end of the day, that's what those judges are charged with finding, is a young lady who's ready to be Miss Florida and ready to go to Miss America. In addition to the the educational opportunities and funding that Miss Tampa has opened up to you, what other doors and avenues has this the pageant and the title Miss Tampa opened up to you in the community? I think it's just gotten me access, to be honest with you. I am blessed with Bob Clark to have an incredibly well-funded program, but not only that, the opportunity for networking it provides me. I know you got to experience the Miss Tampa lunch. Every Friday we meet at the Columbia, and Bob Clark invites 15 people that are movers and shakers of the city of Tampa. And I in the future have intentions of opening a practice in Tampa. I hope to stay there, and I think all of the connections that I'm making now are going to help me when I'm a physician later on. So I've been very thankful for that, and that is enough to justify participating, in my opinion. All right. Again, currently talking to Olivia Butler, the 2017 Miss Tampa Award winner, and competing for Miss Florida June 27th through July 1st, and tickets available over at the lakelandcenter.com. And you briefly mentioned Bob Clark, who sponsors the Miss Tampa pageant. We the Tampa Bay business owners are going to be featuring him on June 7th at the TBBO main event. So we're looking forward to an interview with them. People can learn more about that at tbbo.org. Of course, you are invited to the show or the program as well. So Bob Clark, owner of Tampa Steel Erecting here in the Tampa Bay, also a big community contributor to the community, and again helping Miss Olivia Butler here, achieve her goals through helping support the Miss Tampa pageant as well. So Olivia, great discussion today. We wish you the best of luck in the pageant at Miss Florida on June 27th. And if you win there, we want to have you back in here. Of course, we want to have you back in here again anyways, because you're doing so much for the community. So thank you so much for having me. Absolutely. Had a lot of fun. So again, learn more about the pageant, MissTampa.com, and also about the tickets over, MissTampa.org and the LakelandCenter.com for tickets on June 27th. So again, you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.